What's up, guys? It is Rules for Rebels today, and today is a video that you guys really need to watch. And this is something that I've been getting a ton of questions about lately. We're talking about private labeling, and one question that keeps popping up again and again and again is, can you recommend a company that will label my product, or where do I send my products off to get them labeled? So basically, what this video is, I want to clear up some miscommunications and some misunderstandings with the private labeling process, how it's done, and what it is. So one question I've been getting a lot of, like I said, is where do I get my products labeled? And I think there's a misconception that I go to AliExpress and I buy 50 units of, we'll say, this knife, right? So I go to AliExpress, I buy 50 units of this knife. I think people think now I'm going to send this knife off to the ABC labeling company, and that they're going to print my name on this knife, and then they're going to send it to me, and now I have a private labeled product. That's actually not how it works out, and I blame myself for this misconception because I've made a lot of videos about private labeling, and I think I haven't done a good enough job of kind of explaining the process clearly. So this isn't going to be some 2-hour long video where I ramble about private labeling and jump from topic to topic. I'm going to try to stay on topic here so that we can clear this up. So let's see, I made a number of videos about the private labeling process. People misunderstand what it is. I got a little cheat sheet here to keep me on track. Okay, so private labeling, it's actually the manufacturer who is going to put your label on the product. And I'm going to explain how this works and why this is in just a second. I think after I finish the portion of this video with me talking, I'm going to also incorporate a couple minutes of a screencast at the end of this video so that I can take you guys over to AliExpress and actually show you guys on AliExpress, like, where on the listing form do you find if they private label, what types of labeling do they offer, etc. So when you buy an item off Alibaba, or I'm sorry, when you buy an item off of either AliExpress or DHgate, you're not actually dealing with a manufacturer, the person who makes the product. You're dealing with a trader. So if I'm living over in Asia, I may go to the knife factory down the street from me, and I may buy 1,000 of these knives, and I may then list these knives on AliExpress or DHgate. Now, I have a box of these knives sitting in my apartment, and when you come to AliExpress and order one of these knives from me, I put it in a package and I ship it off to you in the US, and you have a plain, unbranded knife. Now, if you came to me and asked me, hey, can you put my name on a knife? You know, I already have these knives in my possession. There's no name printed on the knife, so I don't really have any way of doing that. I suppose if you wanted a large enough quantity, it might be worth my while to run over to the knife factory and say, hey, I have a guy who wants 500 of these knives and he wants his name on them. Can you do that for him? And they're going to say, you know, they'll probably say, yeah, and if you order enough, the AliExpress seller may do it for you. But guess what? If I'm the guy running over to the factory for you, I'm going to charge you a cut of each one of those knives. So you would be better off going directly to the manufacturer saying, hey, I want 500 of these knives. And whereas the manufacturer may do it for 50 cents a knife, if you're using the middleman on AliExpress, they're probably going to say $1.50 a knife or $1 a knife, and they're going to make an extra 50 cents or an extra buck off you. So this is why you go direct to the manufacturer, and this is why you go to Alibaba as opposed to AliExpress. The other reason is not even every guy on AliExpress will even offer to do this for you. And the reason being because he has these knives, they're already made, right? When you buy an item off Alibaba, they don't have a warehouse full of these units sitting. You know, it's not like you order 100 pieces of this thing and they're like, let me go pluck it off the shelf and send it to you. No, they have nothing made. So there's a factory with all the raw materials to make these knives. So they got a box full of blades, a box full of these screws, a box full of these red plates, a box full of these little key rings, but nothing is actually assembled or put together ready to go. It's not until I actually contact the supplier, I say, hey, I want 500 of these knives. I want to put my name on them here. Or, you know, we'll say I go to the manufacturer. I say, I want 50 of these knives. I want my name embossed into the plastic here. And I'd like this made in blue instead of red. And because the product's not actually made, they can meet whatever specifications I want. So if I said I wanted this plastic part to be orange, they could do orange for me. If I say that I want the brand name printed on the blade, they could do that. If I say I want the brand name printed here, they can do that. So because nothing's made, I have the ability to not only private label or put my brand or name or logo or whatever somewhere on this product, I can also make changes to it. So I could also say, like, I want one side of this blue and one side of this red. And they could do that for me. So this is why you go to Alibaba for private labeling and not AliExpress or DHgate. Because DHgate and AliExpress, you're dealing with traders. The product's already made, they've already purchased it, and they have a knife like this. On the other hand, Alibaba, they have all the raw materials to make these knives, but nothing is assembled. So I can make tweaks to the product, I can put my brand on the product, etc. So I think that kind of explains Alibaba and why we go there for the private labeling. They explain the difference between AliExpress and Alibaba. Next, we'll touch on how do I find a supplier who offers private labeling. Now, pretty much almost every single supplier on Alibaba offers private labeling. If they don't, they're probably not a manufacturer. They're probably just a reseller or a trader. Now, how do we know if the seller that we're dealing with on Alibaba offers private labeling? Typically on the listing, somewhere either in the item specifics or in the description, it will say either OEM available or it'll say branding or white labeling available. That's going to tell us that they can private label our product. And like I said, pretty much every seller on there is going to be able to private label a product. AliExpress, you're typically not going to be able to private label a product. And DHK, as I've talked about before, is kind of a hybrid between AliExpress and Alibaba. And a lot of times you can get private labeling done with smaller minimum order quantities, so that may be something you want to look into if you can't meet the minimum order quantity of the Alibaba supplier. One other thing I'll touch on really briefly is typically if a supplier says that their minimum order is 50 pieces, they may do an order of plain units for 50 pieces, but in order to private label those units, they may require a higher size order. So they may say, okay, we'll sell you 50 units of a generic product, but if you want to put your brand on it, you have to order 100 or 150 or 500. So that's just something to be aware of. And then the last thing I wanted to touch on is different suppliers are going to offer different types of private labeling. What I mean by that is how they put your brand or your label on it. So some of the more common ones are embossing, debossing, either etching or engraving, or screen printing. So an example of embossing would be like letters raised up to where it's textured, right? I'm trying to think if I have anything around here that yeah, I don't really have anything around here that's embossed. But you guys know what an embosser is. It presses the paper underneath and it leaves a raised texture. The other thing we can do is, this is called debossing. I don't know if you guys can see this. You see how it's not etched, but it's debossed because it's indented as opposed to coming out. So you have embossing and debossing, which is actually like a texture to the material. You have etching or engraving, which would basically be either laser etching or essentially scratching the logo into the item. And lastly, we have screen printing, which screen printing would be, do I have anything around here? I mean, I guess you could say this is screen print. I mean, it's essentially like printing on the item. So there's probably a few more that I'm missing here, but I mean, essentially, you're a lot of times you're going to see we offer label services. Sometimes they'll list embossing, debossing, etching, laser etch, screen printing. So a lot of times they'll list the types of logo services they offer. Other times you may have to contact them and inquire. But yeah, I mean, that's how you're going to know if somebody does private labeling, is if they list either OEM or branding. If they don't list the types of labeling that they offer, you may want to contact them and inquire about that. Let's see, so we've covered that. Where do you order from? Again, just to be clear, there's not a company out there that's a labeling company. It's actually the manufacturer who's labeling these things for you. I touched on the MOQ. Typically, you're going to have to order a higher quantity if you want to private label something. One other thing I want to touch on, you may want, let's say you order a sample of a generic product, and okay, I get this knife, there's no printing on it. A lot of people think, okay, well, I like the product, it's good, I'm ready to order. And they won't actually request a sample of their item branded. And one reason I would suggest requesting a sample of something that you're having branded is because you're typically having to order a larger quantity. So let's say you decide to order 5,000 of these knives, and you can be as clear as day in terms of where you want the logo, what kind of logo you want, etc. But let's say that there's a lot of times there's a language barrier between you and the factories or whatever. Let's say you say, okay, I want my logo printed on this side of the knife, and I want it, debossed across here. And maybe you explain that to the person, maybe you send them pictures with an arrow pointing at where you want the logo, and you order your 5,000 pieces and it comes by sea, and a month or 6 weeks later it arrives, and all of a sudden you get this and the logo is screen printed across this area here, and you're like, that's not what I wanted. I wanted it here. I wanted it to look like this. They don't even have my logo looking right. It's too small. You can't read out what the font says. It's on the wrong area. and now you're stuck with 5,000 of these knives that have the logo put in a really stupid area. Now, with most products, there's kind of a typical area where you're going to put the private label. I mean, with a knife like this, it makes sense to have the logo there. I mean, I suppose you could go across here, but typically the supplier is going to have an idea on that product where somebody would typically put a logo, and that's typically what they'd recommend. And quite honestly, I would recommend going with their recommendation because they know where it's going to look best, etc. But when you start customizing stuff, there's a lot of chances for mistakes to be made and things to be misunderstood. I've shared a story in the past about how I ordered like $3,000 worth of a product. I'd ordered it from the same supplier 2 times in the past. I decided to make a small tweak to the product. So there's an area on the product where wires are soldered in, and I said, hey, can we put a plastic bracket here so that they're a little bit more secure? I wound up getting an entirely different product. And I thought I was screwed. I thought I'm stuck with $3,000 worth of merchandise I can't sell. And in all honesty, that actually became one of my top selling products, so it wound up working out. That said, it wasn't the product that I ordered. It just kind of worked out lucky that I was able to make my money off of it and that it was a successful seller. But this is just an example about how you really need to be clear about the communication. And even though it may add a couple bucks and a few more days to the whole order process, I would highly suggest getting a sample of not only the product, but the product with your private label on it so that you can ensure you're happy with how the logo looks, where it appears on here, how it's printed, etc. One other thing, and I've mentioned this before, here's one sort of shortcut to private labeling. So let's say your supplier wants you to order 1,000 pieces in order to private label it, and you're just not at a place where you can afford that or aren't ready to dive in that deep. You can either reach out to other suppliers and find somebody to do that, or the other thing you could do, let's say they say you have to order 1,000 of these knives to get your label put on it, but we'll let you order 50 of them if you're willing to take them generic. So what I might do is order the generic knives, but then I go to some other, there's a million different companies, you can find websites and stuff, and I could design custom packaging. So my actual knife does not have any brand on it, there's no logo, there's no name. However, I put the knife in a nice little knife box that does have my logo, rules for rebels, sharpknives.com, or, and so the packaging has my logo on it. The actual product doesn't have my logo on it. Now, technically, is this private labeling? Not really. I mean, you could say it's creating a brand. It is kind of tying a brand in with my knife. But unless the logo or the name actually goes on the product, you are going to have a hard time getting Amazon to take your back and remove other people from the listings. Because if somebody else is selling the same generic knife with no logo and it doesn't come in my box, a lot of people will try to fight it and tell Amazon, well, I have this custom box, I'm shipping it in a custom box. And you might, if you're lucky, be able to get Amazon to take your side on that one. But what Amazon doesn't want is a bunch of people just making up brand names and then you have 50 listings for the same product. Amazon actually wants unique products. So unless you're actually stamping, printing, etc., your name, your brand on the product, you're not truly creating a different product, and you're probably not going to have a lot of luck getting Amazon to take your side on that issue. So that's kind of what I have to say about private labeling. Again, I have gone off on a little bit of a tangent, so one thing I just wanted to be crystal clear about, there is not a labeling company or a labeling service. It's not as if you're going to go order products from DHgate and then bring them over to Jim's labeling company and have a label printed on them. I mean, I suppose there are companies out there who will do that, but that's really not how private labeling works. You are going to go to the manufacturer through Alibaba, and because nothing's actually made yet, you can make small tweaks. You can change the color. You could say, okay, I want this knife blade maybe more round at the end instead of sharp. You could say, I want the logo screen printed across here instead of debossed into here. So you can make some small changes to the product. You can label your product. But this is actually part of them actually assembling and manufacturing this process. You are not buying knives and then taking the knives over to Jim's labeling company to have them labeled. That's not how it works. So, like I said, totally my fault for not being clear enough in some of the previous videos about how private labeling works. But I hope this clears it up for you. And you know what I think I'm going to do? We'll see if I haven't really hopped on Alibaba today yet to do a walkthrough here for you. But in just a second, when this video cuts out, I will most likely be taking you over to a quick screencast where I'll show you kind of examples of labeling that you can get done. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Subscribe right here if you're not subscribed. Give this video a thumbs up if it helped you out. Stay tuned. I got a lot of great content coming at you this week. And hop over to the screencast in just a second here and we'll wrap this up. Hey, what's up guys? It's Rules for Rebels here, and we're picking back up where we left off. So in the first part of this video, I kind of explained the private labeling process, the fact that there is not a company out there called, Jim's Labeling, which labels the products. So what we're doing here is looking at some Alibaba listings so I can kind of show you where to look in the listings to see if somebody is willing to private label something. Now, one thing I will add is that pretty much every seller on Alibaba will offer private labeling. But here specifically, like in the listing where you want to look for that information. So here you can see this person actually says right in the description, with private label, best brand battery. So this is like one of those portable battery chargers with private label. So they say it right in the title. As you can see here, somebody calls theirs, Fairchild's Executive Technology. This one is Resh Technology, et cetera. So if you can make up a name, double bump batteries, or whatever you want to call it, and get it printed on there. As you can see here, and they'll always list the MOQ or a minimum order quantity, but they won't always list the minimum order quantity in order to have something private labeled. So a lot of sellers may say minimum order is 100 pieces, but if you contact them and say, I want to private label this item, they may say, okay, well, if you want to, if you want to customize a product, or if you want to private label it, then the minimum is 250 pieces. But these guys, for 100 pieces, will private label the item for you. Here's where it's coming from, as many pieces they can deliver in a month, payment methods, etc. If we go down here, a lot of times it'll mention here OEM or private label. Let's see, overcharging. Okay, OEM, logo and color packaging. So they can customize a logo on a product for you, and they can also do custom packaging for you as well. Brand, OEM, or ODM, so that means there is no brand, it's a generic product. You can slap your name on it. Sometimes they'll tell you the type of labeling they can do. So to me, this looks like screen printing, and due to the nature of this product, I would think it would be screen printing. Sometimes you can have embossing, debossing, etching, engraving, etc. But for this type of product, it makes sense that it would be screen printed. But sometimes they will add, embossing, debossing, laser, engraving, etc. They kind of tell you the lead time and things like that. Basically, what would happen here is you pretty much know everything up front. Typically, I would contact them and say, what's the minimum order for private labeling? But they tell us here 100 pieces. So I know I have to order 100 pieces. I don't know where my price is going to be. It's probably going to be closer towards the $4 range because that's the minimum. But I would basically contact them and say, hey, I'm interested in ordering, 100 pieces. What is your price with air FOB shipping? What type of file would you like for the logo? And some of these guys have in-house graphic designers and things who can help you create a logo or do things for you. Other times you'll just have to go to them with a vector file. You can easily go to Fiverr.com and pay somebody $5 to create a logo for you, and they'll deliver it in a PNG vector file, and you'll just hand that over to these guys. And what a vector file means is that the logo can be either enlarged or made smaller, without affecting the quality. So, this is basically what the raw product's going to look like. You can slap your label on it. I'm just going to scroll through here and see if there's anything else interesting. Seems like that's about it. Let's go over. I pulled up another listing for you guys. So this is a water bottle that can be private labeled. And promotional gift, Borosilicate glass water bottle private label. 100 pieces for this water bottle. They don't specify whether that's private or whether that, 1,000 pieces. They don't specify whether that includes a private labeling or not. I would guess you can private label at a 1,000-piece order. If we go down here, they have a brand Win-Win World, clear, transparent. They can do samples, usage, material, logo, customized. So these guys also don't specify what type of private labeling they do. But again, it's screen printing most likely. Customized logo. Sometimes we'll include some example. Okay, so here's somebody put like a bamboo shoot or something on their water bottle. Sometimes they'll include logos of, some examples of the types of logo work that they can do and things like that. Let's see here. Allowed printing your logo or brand. Any color can be selected. So again, because none of this stuff is made, you can select the color, you can select the logo. They'll do packaging for you. See here. Okay, so that's really all there is to look at here. And this is a little bit of a different twist on private labeling. This is actually private labeling supplements. So let's take a look here. Amazon.com, turmeric capsules. So look, see, we have Fettle turmeric. We have Nature Made is actually like a real brand that's sold in like the grocery stores. We have, whose brand is this? What is that? Vimerson Health, Organic India. So all these things of turmeric, essentially, it's all the same stuff. Some people may have more turmeric in their pills than others or whatever else. But essentially, any supplement out there, whether we're talking ginkgo biloba, turmeric, nootropics, which might be something to improve focus or relaxation or sleep or whatever else. All this stuff is available in bulk powder. You can either order this stuff in drums and deal with the packaging or making it into capsules or private labeling yourself, or these guys will do it for you. But let's take a look here. Capsules for improved food supplement, sample available. Used in pharmacy, food, cosmetics. Okay, so they provide the raw material. They also make the capsules. And then here's where the private labeling comes in. You can pick the type of packaging you want. So do you want clear plastic? Do you want like a red see-through plastic? Do you want it to look more like a pill bottle? You can choose the packaging, and here is where you can choose the label. So this gets a little bit more complicated than just private labeling. Nutritional supplements and anything that you ingest or put on your skin is already going to be a little bit more complicated. There's sometimes some red hoops to jump through in terms of importing it. It's a lot tougher to get on Amazon. And also, there's certain rules and restrictions and things like that. I'm not really into the supplement arena, but I mean, I think you have to name the ingredients. You have to put certain risks and thing on your bottles. So a lot of this is kind of template type stuff that everybody has to do, and they'll probably cover on the label for you. But at the very least, you're actually choosing the branding and how you want your label to look. So here's another example of private labeling here. But I just kind of wanted to show you guys like where on an Alibaba listing are you going to look to see if they private label. Where are you going to look to see what their minimum order quantity? A lot of times you will have to reach out to them and ask them some of these questions. And actually, to find these products, I actually just went on Alibaba.com and typed right in the search bar here, private label, and everybody who's advertising themselves as a private labeler pulls up here. See pills, water bottles, yoga mats, etc. But really, like any product, we can do. Let's see, fire starter. I mean, you really don't have to seek out something like that. Like, let me see here. I don't know. Let's see if these guys private label. 3,000 piece fire starter. Blade material, magnesium, hand scraper, stinge, color, so you can pick the color. I was trying to see just on like a random listing I pulled up if they mention anything about private labels or anything. R&D. Yeah, we'll go back. Let's try to take a look at something else. We'll see if these guys put anything on their listing here. Okay, so brand name OEM. OEM means essentially that you can come up with your own brand. Let's see if they list anything about the types of reliable. Okay, so this to me looks like, it's hard to tell. It's either engraving or embossing, but you can see there's some kind of logo there. Here is screen printing. So this guy's calling his Wildcraft. Again, Wildcraft. This is screen printing here. This would be, I think you'd call that etching. Here's another one. I can't see what the brand name is there. But anyhow, you guys get the point. Here is kind of within an Alibaba listing where you want to look to see either do they private label, what type of private labeling do they offer, and you can kind of sometimes see examples of how people are doing their private labeling as well. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. If so, give it a thumbs up. If you're not subscribed, click that subscribe button just to the bottom left of this video. If you guys have any questions or comments, please leave them in the comment section below. And I apologize, guys, and I know I've talked a lot about private labeling, and apparently I haven't been clear enough because I keep getting the same question over and over, which tells me if a lot of you guys have this question, I wasn't clear enough in my description, so I apologize for that. But hopefully this video clearly explains the private labeling process. Thanks a lot, and we'll catch you on the next video.